End of season 1 of The Mandalorian has just premiered. Episode 8, or should I say chapter 8 of The Mandalorian. We're talking about the big reveals, the action in this episode, the Taika Waititi stick the landing, what to expect in the season 2. We're talking about that and much more. Chapter 8 of The Mandalorian was titled Redemption. The Mandalorian comes face to face with an unexpected enemy. What's going on, everybody? Elliot here with my final review, recap, breakdown of the last episode of this season, The Mandalorian, Chapter 8. Very excited to talk about what Taika Waititi did with this episode, talk about the reveals, talk about what can we expect in next season and everything in between. So let's jump into it. Before I dive into it, though, definitely subscribe to my channel, hit that bell so you can stay up to date with my content. And if and when you've seen this episode, I want to know your thoughts on the episode, your theories on what's to come next year, what was your favorite moments of the episode, and your overall thoughts of the season of The Mandalorian. Let me know in the comments. Let's have some fun discussions in the comments below. So let's break it down. This was directed by Taika Waititi, as I said like 3 or 4 times already. One of my favorite directors in Hollywood. I know not all his sensibilities or his humor works for everyone, but I love Taika Waititi, and this was a Taika Waititi episode. From the very start of the episode, we see 2 stormtroopers having a very hilarious conversation, in my opinion. You know, it's always been said upon that stormtroopers are the worst shots in the galaxy, and Taika Waititi definitely showed us that when they're having a little target practice at the beginning of the episode. These are the same stormtroopers that picked up Baby Yoda and killed Quill last week, and we see them talk about, you know, one of the stormtroopers wants to see Baby Yoda, the other one hitting Baby Yoda on the head. I'm like, come on, Baby Yoda, you gotta take this guy out right now. But we see that, but again, it was just within the first 2 minutes, you're like in this scene, and this is Taika Waititi type of comedy. This is like Thor Ragnarok, where he sometimes sits on the scene a little bit too long, and you think he's like got all the juice out of the comedy, but there's more and more and more. I love that first scene, and again, it was just hilarious, and you know you're in a Taika Waititi moment there. So I love that. We see IG-11, again, a Taika Waititi episode to the max. He's playing a character, he's directing the episode and bringing his sensibilities to the episode. So we see him take out the stormtroopers and pick up Baby Yoda, and we see him, you know, go take the fight to Moff Gideon and his stormtroopers. And, you know, we see before that Moff Gideon gives the, Grief and Mando and Cara Dune some options to say, hey, I'm going to give you guys a sunset to the night to make a decision if you want to cooperate and negotiate with me. But, you know, and in the mix of all that, we see the flashback finally kind of wrapping up what happened to Mando. And we also find out his name later on. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but we see the complete flashback of what we got in this whole season, and we see, you know, obviously the droids took out his village, and we see that the Mandalorians actually saved, you know, Mando and saved the rest of the town. And for a brief second, I thought that was Boba Fett, but it wasn't him. It was just a Mandalorian doing his job, doing his duty, and protecting the people. And that's where, you know, Grief and Dune find out that he isn't, you know, that the Mandalorians aren't a race, they're a creed, and we get that moment there. But at that time, we see IG-11 helps them out with, you know, he's in beast mode at this point. He's protecting the baby. He's flipping the baby over, shooting out stormtroopers. Again, this action in this episode was top notch. I love the direction entirely by Taika Waititi in this episode, but the action was amazing. So we see IG-11 taking out the troopers, and we see Mando go full Rambo and taking that machine that they were going to be killed by Moff Gideon, and he taking the machine, just mowing down stormtroopers. Again, it's 3:30 in the morning, and my girlfriend and my dog sleep in another room, but I was just cheering to the top of my lungs without trying to wake them up. But I was loving that moment. And again, the action was amazing. IG-11 helps them out. You know, we see Moff Gideon takes out the machine that Mando was using. He gets injured by that, and we see them go back to the bar, and, you know, Dune and Grief go into the the sewers, and, you know, IG-11 says, hey, take the child, I'll stay here with him and help him recuperate. And we see the little interaction there again. Mando doesn't trust droids, but IG-11's telling him, hey, you have to take off your helmet. I'm not a living creature. And we get one of the biggest requests of the season. The question was, will Mando take off his helmet at all? And a lot of people are like, oh, no. And I was was fine with that if he didn't take off his helmet, but the moment happened. He releases the helmet. We see Pedro Pascal in the flesh, in the costume, as it's been alluded to, that sometimes he's not always in the suit. He does voiceover sometimes, or does the audio later on, but we see his face for the first time, which I thought was pretty awesome. We get that moment there, and we also get his name was revealed. Go back a couple scenes, we see Moff Gideon reveal his name, and he is, if I'm not mistaken, if I wrote it down correctly, I think it was Din Djarin, if I believe is his name. If I'm spelling it, if I'm saying it wrong, let me know in the comments, but we get his name there. So I'm still going to call him Mando, because I think that's a much more cool name than his actual name, but we get that reveal there. They make it down to the sewers, and that's where we come into the woman that was making the armory for the Mando and giving him his new upgrades. And we see that all the other Mandalorians have left town. They're now, since their identity has been revealed, they're no longer Mandalorians, if I'm not mistaken, but they're off in the galaxy. But she stays behind, helps Mando kind of get his gear all together. He gets the clan to him and Baby Yoda, as the armor woman tells him that now this is your son. You have to train him and then eventually get him back to his people, to his species. So that's probably the big hint of what season 2 is going to be about. Mando and Baby Yoda, him training him, and who knows how big Baby Yoda is going to be for season 2, but that's the clan too, father and son journey in season 2. Very excited for that. The troopers arrive, and that's where we see her take out the stormtroopers, and I'd imagine she'll be back in season 2, and maybe we'll get a reveal of who that character is if she removes her helmet. So they arrive to the lava river, where we see a giant droid leading them on the way, and that's where we get kind of that emotional moment with the droid, with Mando, because obviously the whole season Mando did not trust droids, but he trusted IG-11. He didn't want him to die, and we get a little laugh moment there where the droid tells him that I can tell by your voice you're emotional at this point. But we see IG-11 sacrifice himself, takes out the platoon there, and takes out the the remaining of the stormtroopers, which was a really badass moment. But at that point, they make it out of the lava, but Gideon comes up with his ship and starts to shoot at Cara and Mando and Greef and the baby. But Mando uses his new weapons, his new jetpack, and takes out Greef Gideon in his ship there. And I knew he wasn't gonna die, because he's a pretty big character. So we see him take him down. You see Mando says his goodbyes and flies off, and has a little superhero landing, but flies off with Baby Yoda, and they go off on their journey now to be a father and son journey, to conquer the galaxy, and eventually I guess the end game is to bring Baby Yoda back to his species. So love the episode. Before we finish up the recap, we see Greef Gideon, he's still alive. Greef Gideon, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sorry for me mispronouncing his name, but we see he's alive. He has his Dark Saber, which I thought was a badass moment. We know he's going to be the returning villain in season 2. But as a whole episode, I enjoyed it from top to bottom. I still think the episode 3 might be my favorite, but literally episode 8 is right there. I'm going to rewatch the entire season and binge it just to kind of get that experience of what it's like all in one package. But this episode is pretty high up there as far as my favorites of the season. Taika definitely knocked it out of the park. I would love to see him back next year. I would love to see him maybe tackle a Star Wars film in entirety, just because, again, I know some people might not be the biggest fan of his comedy, but I loved it. I thought that he handled the comedy well. He brought in some things that, as a fan, I always want to hear what stormtroopers have to say about their bosses. They were talking about getting at the beginning, like, hey, you just do what he says, or he's going to kill you. I love the little comedy there, and again, I think he handled the drama really well and handled the action superb, just excellent, across the board, in my opinion, from Taika Waititi. I'm very excited to see who comes back for season 2 in regards to the directors. If we get, a Rick Famuyiwa, if we get a Deborah Chow back, which she's going to probably be tied up with, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But I really enjoyed this season as I kind of transition about my thoughts of the season. Again, it took a minute to kind of get used to what the flavor of the show was. It took about 4 or 5 episodes or chapters for me to kind of see, okay, they're going to have these individual one-off episodes, but within those episodes, we're going to learn about Mando. We're going to learn about him and his code and his, meeting these other people that he's met in his past, and him kind of, taking this new path. It is the way, but now it's somewhat of a new way. He learned a lot about himself. He want to protect Baby Yoda. He's a father now. So I thought it was a really cool character and a very awesome Star Wars piece of live action. And I'm so excited to see what they do with season 2. This is the last live action Star Wars we're going to get into, whether season 2 comes out or we get the Obi-Wan Kenobi series first. But it's the last for a minute. I know a lot of people were a little sour about Rise of Skywalker last weekend, which you can see my spoiler review and my non-spoiler review on this channel once you're done watching this. But I enjoyed the Rise of Skywalker, but I know there's some divisiveness and there's definitely some hesitancy. People are very hesitant to see the future films with Kathleen Kennedy and kind of the regime that's there, and seeing how this trilogy played out. A lot of people weren't happy with that, but I think TV's the future for Star Wars for a while, and I'm pretty satisfied with that, especially when you get a season like The Mandalorian that we got in season 1. So overall, I enjoyed this episode. I love this. One of my favorites of the season. I enjoyed the season as a whole. I'm excited to see what they have for season 2. I'm excited to see more of this Star Wars TV universe with Deborah Chow and Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Castian series, and whoever and whatever they want to bring to the Disney Plus platform. I'm all down for it, because this was a great Star Wars piece of TV that we got, and I'm so happy that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and all the directors that jumped on board did a really great job, and I'm excited to see what they do for season 2. So that's my thoughts on the episode, my thoughts on the season. You know what you gotta do in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the episode, your likes, your dislikes, what you thought about what's to come in season 2. Let me know your overall thoughts of the season and what you want to see as far as the future of Star Wars. Do you want to wait another 3 or 4 years for a movie? Do you want to continue to see these TV shows? Let me know all that stuff in the comments. Thank you all for watching all my reviews for The Mandalorian. I've reviewed all 8 episodes. This isn't my last review for TV. I review a lot of TV, so check out my review that I recently did for You on Netflix, The Witcher last week, Servant on Apple TV+. Got a lot of movies I just saw recently, such as Uncut Gems, Little Women, Honey Boy, a lot of stuff like that. I'm planning on seeing 1917 pretty soon, so I got a lot of stuff coming pretty soon as well. Top 10 movies for horror in the last decade. Favorite superhero movies, top 10 movies of 2019, most anticipated movies of 2020. So a lot of content coming pretty soon. So thank you all again for watching this review. Like, share, comment below, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and make sure you follow me on all my social media accounts so we can continue to talk about these things that we love. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next video.